Welcome to my laboratory today. I had a fantastic question from a Patreon member, and they said, what is the difference between compost tea and fertilizer? And when do you use them and when don't you use them? So I have my visuals here from boot camp. If you have not come to boot camp, come to boot camp. You need to come to boot camp. There's a lot of pushy salesmen out there, and I hate those people. So I'm not going to be that way. But if you want to grow food for your family, come to boot camp. And then you will get the foundation of what we're talking about. Fertilizer, inoculant, and compost tea. First of all, people use a compost inoculant and compost tea. They use the words interchangeably. Completely different. Completely different. Completely different. Compost tea is not a compost inoculant, okay? We call it an extract. If you inoculate something, that is the action of putting something out there. So I can take a compost tea and I can inoculate with it. I can take a vaccine and you stick it in you, and you inoculate yourself with something. Inoculate means to introduce something. I can take a compost extract and inoculate something. So what are we doing? So I'm calling this an inoculant. This is an extract. I don't use compost tea. Would I use compost tea? Yes. Will I use it in the future? Probably, most likely. Have I ever used it in the past? No. Compost teas, you take your compost and you make an extract, and then you take the extract and you feed the extract food and you bubble lots of oxygen in it, like with a fish bubbler, for 24 hours. Every hour you pull a sample of the compost tea. It looks like this, and we put it on a microscope slide. Here's my microscope. And then you look at it in the microscope every single hour for 24 hours. So it's an all-night process. So when I make a compost tea, which I have made, but if I was going to make them commercially for you, you would pay for it because I'm up all night. So, when do you use a compost tea and why would you go to that much work? Because a compost tea is for the leaves of plants. If I have a disease in my trees, yes, you make a compost tea and you get it up there on your tree leaves. And you would spray it up there. You would saturate all the leaves with a compost tea. Teas are fantastic. Teas are wonderful. Teas are great. I don't deal with trees that much. I deal with more of the shrub layer and the root layer in the world. Most of my trees have been fine. I haven't had to make a compost tea. So the compost extract, which is what this inoculant is, you mix that up. It takes 5 minutes. You just get a little bit of compost, like a baseball size or softball size round of compost. You put it in a strainer. You wiggle it all around, and then you have a 5-gallon bucket of the liquid. That's your extract. And then, if you want to know if it's good, you would look at it under the microscope, but you don't necessarily have to if you know you have a good compost. How do you know? Test your compost, and then you just make your tea, your inoculant of the extract. So you don't have to test every single batch you make if you've tested your compost. So you can do one test and then make hundreds and hundreds of buckets of this stuff from one test if you know your compost is already good. And then you inoculate. So what are we inoculating? It says it right here. You're introducing the beneficial bacteria, fungus, protozoa, nematodes into your garden. And possibly microarthropods, possibly earthworms. It just depends how you make the extract. That's an extract. That's what I use. I use it all the time. You use that to change like ecological succession from early succession to mid or even to late by getting the proper microbes in there at the proper ratios so that your fungal to bacterial ratio is where it needs to be for the crop you're going to grow. How do you know that? You come to the 17-week boot camp and then you learn all that. Or you keep watching Patreon and eventually I get to those videos. but that could be years. And if you need to grow food now, come to a class. And classes are online. You can join. Fertilizer is a plant nutrient. We're talking about NPK, good old-fashioned NPK, and all the other nutrients. Boron, zinc, whatever. So fertilizer is what we feed the plant, and if our soils are deficient and they're not functioning, then we have to give them a pharmaceutical so that they will function. It's like a very sick person. You have a sick person, they're going to die, but they can function on pharmaceuticals. Our whole society is based on that, so you can understand fertilizer. It's not hard to understand. But inoculating with the proper microbes to make you healthy in the first place so you never need a pharmaceutical, that's called health and vitality. So which one do we want? Well, in certain situations, we need both of them. So we always will need these. Sometimes we do need these. Am I saying that this is good and this is bad? No. This is very good if you're about to die. Most soils in the world that have been farmed for a while need this or you starve to death. But why stay using something? Imagine if you had a pharmaceutical that was costing you $400 a month. There's people in the world who do that. It's financially troublesome. So get to a point where you don't need this and you're just doing this. This is the way we were designed by God. Heavenly Father designed us so that we can thrive. We need to stay healthy. And the reason we're not is because we're using so many of the chemicals in the Green Revolution of the last, 150 years, 100 years, whatever. That can be argued on the time frame, but the Green Revolution proper, it started with the advent of NPK when they were developing the bombs in World War II. And then the Green Revolution started, but a lot of it started before that. So there's debate on when that actually started. But fertilizer is great. I use fertilizer to get this working because you have to have plants growing for these microbes to stay alive because the microbes need to have food. Microbes die if you don't feed them. So you have to feed the microbes in order for them to thrive and survive. And if your soil's so bad it won't grow any plants, a lot of your microbes won't be alive. And so to get the plants to grow, you feed them a pharmaceutical, and then they stay alive and they finally get to the point where they're healthy enough that you don't need either of these inputs anymore. All you're doing is planting and harvesting. And you are mimicking nature, you are stewarding the land, and you're not doing things that kill the microbes. Like tilling kills the microbes, fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, those all kill microbes in the soil. That's one of the big problems with the seeds nowadays. A lot of the seeds we're getting don't have microbes on them because the farmer will go out and he'll spray his whole field with Roundup, kills all the microbes, and then when you grow the seeds, the microbes aren't in the ground to travel up the cells of the plant when the seed matures, and then they cystate and sporulate on the seed, and then when you plant the seed, it's already inoculated with the microbes that help them grow. That's not happening in our modern world because we have sterilized our soils. There's like 20 questions that will come out of this if you want to ask them, and I can make more videos. But thank you for a great question, and I will get this uploaded to answer it. And I hope you have a fantastic garden this year. This should be the best garden of your life because it's the current one. The current garden is always the best. So hopefully, I always say helpful. Hopefully this helps you to have the most fantastic inoculation of your entire life.